We are. We are live. Yes, yes.
It's not the same if we don't say it like that.
It really isn't. It's kind of become a staple.
Absolutely. So, welcome everyone. If you've been here before, then you kind of know the drill. If this is your first time, we kind of just chat for about 5 to 6 minutes while we wait for everyone to arrive, and then we get started. If you see the title of the live, then you already know what tonight's podcast topic is. But Brittany, how's your week been?
Um 2021 needs to be saged.
Look, I started this year with so much optimism, so much
So
hope, just
much.
like,
So
yes,
much.
it's gonna be a great year. We're gonna recoup. We're gonna come back from 2020. I don't know about y'all, but 2021 for me personally has been worse than 2020 in a lot of ways. A lot of ways. I'm shook, like emotionally and mentally, it's been a lot harder for me.
Yeah. Like I really did not. I really did go into like, okay, like the worst is we got over the hump, like the worst is over. And it's just like every month I'm like, it's like the thing is reminding me like, so like we're still here and wrecking your shit is like the number one thing we're ready to do here. Yay.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
been an interesting year. I for one am very very thankful that we only have a couple months left. I am ready to put this year behind me. Like let's go on into 2022. And honestly, even saying 2022 sounds strange because in my mind, it's like we went from 2019 to 2021 cuz 2020 was just this weird portal where we were all stuck in this strange, timeless zone. So it's almost like even when I try to remember things, like memories, like things, my mind immediately goes to 2019 and I have to remind myself, like, no, there was like a whole year after that. And
No, I feel like 2020 and 2021 have been one long year. You
yeah,
you ever realize when you're trying to talk to people about stuff and you're talking about it as if it happened this year, and then it's like, no, that was last March. Like not this last March, but the last March before that.
yes, no, it is. I agree with you. It is like one long, endless year that is just never ending. And my mind is still blown that like 2019 was 2 years ago.
I know.
I'm just like, wait, I'm sorry, what?
I
What
was
is happening?
I don't know. It's like I have been there have obviously been some good moments this year where things have happened for me that I'm, cool, great. But the majority of it, I'm just like you ever been afraid to go to your therapist because you're just afraid you're about to be Baker acted? Like that's where I'm at right now. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, listen, we could talk, but you have to pinky swear not to Baker act me. Like
Right.
pinky swear. Pinky
Whew.
swear, please.
It's been a lot. I feel like I have neglected myself this year in ways that it's weird. It's kind of like 2020 was kind of like a reset, but in a bad way. Um, it's I'm trying to find the words to put to my emotions, but essentially, I have been slowly discovering this year that there were some things that I was doing for myself in 2019 and years prior to 2019 that all just stopped in 2020 because it was 2020 was all about just like getting through 2020, right? So, and obviously everything was closed. We couldn't see our loved ones. It was very traumatic in a lot of ways and in ways that we're all still processing probably. And it wasn't until literally last month that I had a light bulb moment and I was like, oh, I haven't done this for myself since 2019. I also haven't done this for myself. I also haven't. And it's slowly starting to come back to me all of the things that I used to do. Like I used to, journal a lot more. I used to, like, for lack of better words, meditate a lot more. Like all of these self-care things, like even just like going to get a massage, everything was closed. So I stopped getting them. Like just little things that used to help me. And I'm like, no wonder I'm so messed up.
I think the reason is in 2020, we really were under the impression that this was going to be like a 1 year thing. So we
Yes,
focused so hard on coping and surviving 2020 that everything that was our normal changed to adapt to what we thought was a temporary normal.
that is
And
exactly
then,
it.
like, we move into 2021, things have opened back up, but there's still this, like, layered, just hovering dread all the time, where it's
Yes.
like, I still can't be 100 I'm still not 100% free from this. And then on top
Nope.
of that, it's like, what exactly did I want to continue to do from 2019? Like, what about 2000? What did I want to carry over in the first place? I don't even remember.
You don't
What were
remember.
goals? What was that vision board I did? Like, do I just
Don't
start
know.
from there? Or what? Like, how do I progress? That's really where I've been right now.
And then with everything going on in the world, with um, the vaccines, I'm just going to call them vaccines, that
Thanks.
being like mandated in some places, not mandated. Like there's been so much going on just socially, politically. People are very upset. People are losing their jobs. People have been out of work. People are losing more than their jobs. It's all just this stew of fucked upness. And I finally had my like, what the fuck, I'm the adult moment. Cause you know that moment that they talk about on TikTok, or maybe it's even Twitter or both, where something has gone terribly, terribly wrong and you're looking around trying to find the adult and you realize that you're the adult and there's nothing you can do. And you're like, damn, I finally had that moment this year where like so much shit just started going wrong. And I'm like frantically like searching for an authority figure or like somebody to guide me. And I'm like, oh shit, that it's me. I'm the grown up here. All righty. Well, I don't know what to do.
Well, I just want you to know I'm proud of you. You are handling, you are
Thank you.
managing.
Yes.
And I'm only saying this because I had friends come over help me to help work on the planner. And one of my friends, like, she just stopped working while I was laying out boxes and she was like, I'm really proud of you. I almost cried. I was like, you
Oh my
can't
God.
just be stringing on nice words
No,
right
no.
now. And I was like, how often do I tell my friends that I'm proud of them?
Mm,
I was like,
mm.
how often? Because I never hear that phrase, you know?
No,
But it's like I
never.
need to tell all of my friends more often, like, I'm really proud of you. Like,
And
you're
I'm proud
doing
of
this.
you. I'm proud
Yeah.
of you. You are kicking ass, and I don't know how you're still, like, physically up and about with all the shit that you do every day.
The promise that it's almost over.
Okay. There's light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Basically, like, right
Oh,
as we talk tonight, I'm wrapping planners, so if you guys hear any background noise, that's what that is tonight.
but now that everyone is here, hello to our usual crew. And for those of y'all we haven't seen in a while, it's great to see you. Welcome to Black Prose Podcast, where Black lives, Black voices, and Black stories have always mattered. I'm one of your hosts this evening. My name is Oshale. You can find me online under the moniker Oshi Reads.
I'm Brittany, aka Melanin Eclectic, the trademarked entity of my brand. You can find me
Yes!
as Melanin Eclectic on all of the platforms.
I love it. Okay, so let's do a little praise report because I feel like this started off very negatively and this topic is also very negative. So let's just have a short little moment of happiness. Brittany has trademarked Melanin Eclectic and we are so excited for her. We are so happy. It has been a long time coming, y'all. Y'all don't even understand all the shit that has been
It
going on
really
behind
took
the
like
scenes.
a year because I turned in the paperwork last year around this time. It definitely took a year. Definitely.
A full year.
Yeah.
So that's extremely exciting.
Yeah.
For me, I'm trying to think of something good. I'm having a great moment at work right now. I just got some good news. I don't really want to like blast it on here. Sorry, y'all, since I don't really want to talk about my work on here, but work is going well. So that's exciting.
Yay. See, we
It's a
have
little,
good things.
we do. There's positivity, you know. But moving on from our little moment of happiness, and also y'all, if there is something great happening in your lives, please share in the comments. We would be happy to congratulate you and join you in this little praise report moment. But as I mentioned before, welcome to our community chat. which is basically where we talk about issues that are facing the Black community diasporically. So, in the entire African diaspora, we have certain issues that kind of unite us and that we all have in common. And so, if you saw tonight's topic, I think, Brittany, you titled it Preference versus Colorism.
I said preference versus prejudice versus colorism.
Versus prejudice versus colorism. And we did have another colorism chat, our very first one. If you want to check it out, we'll try to leave a link somewhere to the first discussion so you can go watch that, because that one was really great. We had Justin on from Ghost Reader. He had some great historical background stuff on colorism. And then we also just had a preliminary discussion. But tonight we are specifically focusing on colorism when it comes to relationships between Black men and Black women, when we talk about this idea of preference versus prejudice versus colorism, I guess. So yeah, we're going to get started. And also something different about tonight is if you want to join us, we are inviting y'all to come on and join us. I have just placed the link. I don't know if that link is going to work, actually.
While she's working on the link, let me give you our disclaimers for this conversation. This conversation is directed towards the Black community. If you are not Black, thank you for being a part of this discussion, but understand you are secondary in the voices that are to be heard. Also, we do not accept any bigotry of any kind. We do not accept sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia. Did I forget any of the? Listen, come correct
all
or
the
get blocked.
phobias.
That's the phrase. Come correct or get blocked. We are all adults. We can have this conversation, even if we have opposing opinions. We're able to have conversations because we're adults. And if you can't, it's okay. Just listen, because we can have opposing views and still have a conversation. In fact, we might even gain more perspective from having the opposing view. But there are certain things that we don't have opposing views on, and those are all the obias and isms.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can't oppose basic human decency and human rights. We're not going to have opposition to those. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, come correct to get blocked. Period. Period.
But we're not saying that if you have a different opinion from what we're saying that, is not going against someone's human rights, that you shouldn't share them, because we always talk about how Blackness is not a monolith. And especially when it comes to this topic, we have all had different experiences. We all come from different walks of life. We all have different backgrounds, have grown up different ways. We have different cultures within the African diaspora. So we all have our own opinions when it comes to this. So it actually might make the discussion spicier and a little bit more interesting. So we do encourage you to share your opinion. I have left the link in the comments if you want to join us. You do not have to show your face. Obviously, we are not showing our faces either. But if you want to join us live and talk to us live, then you can use the link and we will bring you on.
So I want to pose this particular, this is going to be the effort of today. The effort of today is not to use the phrase all Black women and to not use the phrase all Black men.
Yes.
If we're going to use that type of terminology, refer to it as the Black men I have encountered, or the Black women that I have encountered, or the Black non-binary people I have encountered. Like, do not all it. We're going to try this and see how that changes the conversation.
No, I think that's perfect, Brittany.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where to begin.
Okay. So there's been a lot.
There's been a lot going on in the media in regards to this topic.
Yeah. So here, we can start with two. We can either talk about the therapist with mommy issues, or we can talk about the good hair beauty guru. Which one would you like to start with?
I feel like we can start with the good hair beauty guru because it brings in so colorism has different like subsects or sexed. I can't say that word. It just sounds dirty. Sexts.
I love the struggle of this word, but I feel like
it's so hard.
It sounds terrible for me too. Let me break it down. Colorism is the prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. I will read that one more time.
Yes, please do.
Prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. I did not make up this definition. This is from the Oxford Dictionary.
Yes, that is the official definition. You cannot make up your own. So subsets, there we go, subsets. And one of them is texturism and featureism, which some people who acknowledge the colorism exists then like to kind of like all lives matter it kind of by ignoring texturism and featureism, right? Because they'll say, oh no, like I know dark skinned women who have been chosen and who are preferred, but they'll completely ignore that these dark skinned women have European like features and a more preferred hair texture, right? So that's what we're talking about. There are a lot of nuances to colorism. So somebody may experience, I mean, someone who of a darker skin tone may not necessarily experience colorism in the same way as another person of a darker skin tone, simply because that first person has more European like features and a more quote unquote acceptable hair texture. So there's levels to this, y'all. There's a lot of levels. So that's why I want to start with that.
Awesome. So this young lady on the internet, I forgot what her name is.
I kind of don't want to say her name because
I don't think saying her name is important.
it's
However,
not important.
she was making a video where she was talking about she was boosting a hair product. And in this conversation, she made the comments that she's so glad that she has the hair texture that she has because she doesn't have that African American hair, you know, that nappy hair, and proceeded to talk about how her mom has always told her about how lucky she is to have the good hair, and how she just should be so happy that she has good hair, and she's just so excited that like that's not the thing that she has to do, that she has to deal with, because you know that nappy hair. When she was actually corrected on this, she buckled down in this particular thing and just proceeded to stand in her feces.
Yeah, she stood 10 toes down. And I do want to say that for those who are completely unfamiliar with this viral story, she is a YouTuber. The YouTuber in question is a lifestyle YouTuber, and even worse, so now there's subsets of lifestyle YouTubers. If you watch lifestyle YouTubers, then you know what I'm talking about. And she is in the luxury lifestyle YouTuber, and she is a biracial young woman. I do not know how she identifies because, as we know, biracial people can choose to identify as Black, they can choose to identify as biracial, completely up to them. They just can't identify as white because the white community is not about that. But they can choose to identify however they like. A great example, Barack Obama, technically biracial. He identifies as a Black man. So that's their choice. I do not watch her content, so I do not know if she identifies as biracial or as a Black woman. But I do know that she has a lot of Black supporters, specifically Black female supporters. And she's kind of seen as this, like, she's part of like Black girl luxury. You know how there's Black girl luxury TikTok?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy
Oh,
it.
so good. But she's been roped into Black girl luxury YouTube, right? On the lifestyle end. So I do want to preface this by saying that so you kind of get the picture of where we're coming from. She's racially ambiguous looking, but she's definitely biracial. Her mother is obviously a darker skinned Black woman, so I'm guessing her father is obviously a white man. And this was the language that she was using around hair. I do want to say that, okay, she's an adult, right? So she needs to take accountability for what she's saying and how wrong it is, especially now in 2021 when she honestly should be more educated. But at the same time, I really dislike the fact that her mother was pushing this. Her mother, as a dark-skinned Black woman with 4C hair, was kind of planting these seeds in her mind from an early age and pedestalizing her mixed race daughter, saying, oh, you know, you're lucky, you have quote unquote good hair and you don't have to deal with this Negro hair like me. Oh no. And that is very, very problematic and just goes to show how deep rooted this is and how it starts within us, honestly, with the self-hatred and the dislike of our own features and our own skin tones, and how that can be passed down to your children, and how negative it is and how detrimental it is, because now her daughter is saying this to her, however many hundreds of thousands subscribers, and not apologizing because she doesn't think that anything she said is wrong.
Yeah, well, okay. So we obviously know where that idea comes from about like having quote unquote good hair. It stems back from white supremacy and the idea that if you assimilate closer to whiteness, then you're somehow better than your other black counterparts. It's something that we have carried throughout the generation and it's starting to manifest differently as time is progressing, but the one underlying factor is still this idea that there's a such thing as good hair.
Mm.
Because like it's just like, and yes, and I'm agreeing with the comments too, and there's also the other part of this conversation is the fetishization of mixed children.
Yes. And
This
to me,
idea.
it's really disturbing. Like even when you go on Instagram, there's literally pages that's like mixed race babies and stuff like that. And
Yes.
okay, on one hand, you might say, okay, you know what? They deserve to have a space to celebrate themselves and to say, oh, the babies are cute. But it's giving me fetish. It's giving me, looking at these children as an accessory. It's giving me like really icky vibes. It's not giving me what they want it to give me because a lot of these pages will say, oh, we're just celebrating mixed race children and the diversity and how beautiful it is and stuff like that. But that's not what's coming across personally when I've run across these pages. It's very creepy to me. And I don't like it. But, that's just me. That's my personal opinion. For me, what I find more problematic in that whole situation with the viral story is that she was literally blocking people who were trying to educate her, because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm blocking haters or, haters, people who are calling you outside of your name or who are saying mean things. That's one thing. But she was literally blocking people that were trying to educate her, which they don't have to. She's an adult and can access, Google and other historical texts for herself. But there were people literally trying to break it down to her to help her understand why what she said was so problematic. And she was just blocking them and deleting their comments.
Yeah, that's the part. It's like if your buckle down is I'm gonna just block everybody who didn't like the fact that I said I have good hair. It's like
It's not good. Yeah. It's so icky. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, I know you had another story you wanted to talk about, but
well,
there is.
we have somebody that came in and joined us on StreamYard. Are you ready
Oh,
to are you ready to join the conversation?
so ready.
If you love me, if you're ready, let us know in the comments and we'll bring you in. This is the first, and you're officially like the first like audience guest. This is exciting. Ah, it's
Okay.
abominable. Abominable. You don't need these name changes. Hold on.
I was about to say, we know who this is and we
I was
love
like,
her.
abominable. What up?
Hi.
Hey.
I only have one name change, technically.
Long time no speak.
I know.
Yes.
Hi.
It's so good to hear from you. So we're so excited to have you join us on this topic.
I'm excited to be here because these people have had me stressed for like 2 weeks. Stressed.
What's happening?
So it started with the Deja Harris situation for me. I mean, it started way before that. But as far as the more recent craziness, so Deja Harris is T.I.'s daughter.
Right.
And Deja Harris's mom, she is not tiny as much as people like to think it is. Her mom, I believe, is darker skinned. Not quite sure. But she has lighter skin and she has 4C textured hair. And she made a statement saying that when she sees one with 4C textured hair, she always supports them and makes sure to compliment them because 4C textured hair is not for her. And I don't think she quite understood what she was saying when she said that, because in her head, she gave a compliment. But then she went on to explain that as a child, she was constantly told how her hair is nappy, how her hair doesn't match her skin tone, which means that you were told that to be light-skinned is to have, mixed raced hair, or to have hair that was closer to the hair majority of white people have. For
Right.
whatever reason, that was her belief, but she didn't understand that. And I don't know if she still understands that. I don't know. Then we see the YouTuber who is just gaily speaking about, and for those who don't know, gaily is
Hold on, you're
almost.
going in and out a little bit. So it's
Oh
like we can
no.
hear you clearly and then we can't. So just want to put that out there.
Is this any better?
Much better.
Okay. So the YouTuber was just gaily speaking about how, oh, my hair is this, and I've been blessed, and my mom said I've been blessed with good hair, and she did the big chop, and I'm like, oh, sis, I don't know what to do with that because if it was me. All the while, this woman is supposed to be talking about Black hair care products
Mm.
used by Black women. I'm not discrediting or denying her Blackness. What I am saying is, you came to us with heat damaged hair and
Mm.
proceeded to tell the majority of us with 4C hair how we were cursed with our hair and you were blessed with yours.
Mm.
Then turned around and said you didn't say anything wrong. And I'm sure the gatekeepers, which are some Black women and some Black men and some people who really have no opinions in the conversation, telling her she wasn't incorrect. And the issue is, first of all, you have the gatekeepers who tell you, oh no, that's your opinion. Speak your piece. But it's not your piece if you're insulting people. And although
Right.
you were tarnished as a child by being told that you're great because your hair is great because you got the good hair, now you're telling other little kids who are watching you trying to figure out how to use this product on their hair that they were cursed.
Mm.
Which those weren't your words outright. But by saying you were blessed and putting your mom's hair in a negative light, the opposition is she was cursed.
You bring up a beautiful point. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, why? Like, that's the whole reason that the original, and I say original, natural hair movement started. Because
What's
it was
the
the
uplift?
idea that 4C hair is
Yes.
freaking gorgeous.
Yes.
And it's been hijacked yet again and turned into this foolishness where it's just like,
This is why I say that as a community, we are so powerful, especially the Black women of our community. We're so powerful in where we choose to place our support. And out the gate, we're already so supportive of one another, right? Like if we see you and we consider you to be one of ours, we come out for your concerts, we buy your music, we buy whatever you're selling, we support your endeavors, your books, your YouTube channel, your this, your that. And that's why for me, I feel like what speaks louder is just withdrawing your support, right? Because without us, the cursed ones
the
with the
curse
4C
of the
hair
Lord.
Yes.
that watch this young woman's channel without us giving her the views, giving her the praises, whatever. I mean, I think we forget the power that we have and people get so upset, and I'm quick to unsubscribe, honey. The second I see something problematic,
my unsubscribe hand is strong.
I was never
strong.
subscribed. That was the best part.
Right.
And I think that we're very lenient and we like to give people second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth chances. And I just am very, very firm in my belief that at this point in time, if you are a public figure and you have any type of influence and you have any type of platform, you have a responsibility to your audience and you have a responsibility to speak in a way that is going to be, respectful of everyone that is supporting you.
Right.
And everyone makes mistakes. And if you are ignorant about something or make a misstep or you misspeak or whatever the case may be, you have to be the one to then kind of take your licks and step up to the plate and say, yo, I messed up. I'm so sorry that I said this or I did this, and take accountability and own up to what you did and fess up. But when you want to block and you want to ignore and you want to delete comments, and at that point, what you're telling me is you don't care that what you said is hurtful to probably like 50% of your audience, if not larger. Like you could really give a fuck and you're not apologetic and you believe in everything that you said. So why am I here? Why am I here? If you're
Apologetic
against
for
me,
what?
why am I
She
here?
has no reason to apologize because she hasn't done anything wrong. Because this goes into the whole conversation about preferences. There's nothing wrong with you love your hair. That's the whole accepting your curls. And SWOC was talking about biracial women becoming the face of natural hair. Biracial women also fit into accepting your curls. Now, what you cannot and should not ever do is, in praising your curls, you put down mine. For what? Since we not even in the same, I'm 4, you're 3, 2, whatever. We don't even have the same struggles.
Nope.
At all.
So why did you talk about how blessed you were and your mom has 4C and that's a whole I'm looking at heat damage. I don't have that problem. I'm looking at dead ends. I don't have that problem.
You know something that's universal in the hair community? Heat damage.
Yes.
Yes. Very much
because
so.
we're out here straightening things, which again, you can straighten. If you want to perm, you can perm. That's all you is your head. Whatever works best for you in your life, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But don't come over here in my zone when I'm trying to find a product that works best for me. I'm trying to fit this regular wash schedule, this regular oiling schedule. I got a lot of stress on my head, okay? I don't need you coming in here telling me how blessed you are because I don't even know what your reasoning is. Because last I checked, curly, all of us curly have at least broken one comb at one point. And it had nothing to do with somebody being 4C or not.
Right.
Thanks.
It has to do with combs being trash for curly hair. Period.
All of the things. Plus, again, if you are unable to apologize and acknowledge the hurt that you've caused, there's no reason for you to gain support. In fact, you should lose it because
That's how I feel.
intent or not, you did it. So own it, suck it up, take them licks. Let's go.
And honestly, I would have respected her even if she had come up and said, you know what, I didn't really see anything wrong with what I said, but I've been reading the comments and it seems like a lot of you guys are really upset. And I just want to come on here and say, you know what, I'm just going to take a moment to try to figure out what it was wrong in what I said. I'm going to try to educate myself. And I do apologize for anyone I offended. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you don't know, that you're ignorant. There is nothing wrong with saying, you know what? I mean, my mom has said that to me my whole life. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it was normal, but clearly it's not because a lot of y'all are upset. There is nothing. I would have respected her so much more if she had just humbled herself and said, you know what? A lot of y'all are upset. And I have to take a moment and take a step back and be like, I wonder why they're upset and try to figure that out. But nope.
No, that usually becomes internalized into they just mad because I'm pretty and I got good hair, which
I was going to say this next.
Oh my God, you're right.
Always defeats the purpose.
It always turns into that.
Always.
They're just haters because I'm light skinned and they don't like me because they're dark skinned and they're just mad that I'm light skinned. It literally keeps reoccurring into itself. Like the same issue, just manifesting in a different way in response to the original issue. It's like, great. We've gone back to here. So we're back here. Okay.
I feel like
even when we break it down and say, you were okay at this point. At this point, you went left and continued to just go head on left.
Right
and
on
we're
up.
trying to redirect you back into right. And you're still going left. So sis, can you just pause and look back? And she's like, no, because I'm light skinned and y'all mad. Because I got good hair and y'all not. Shrinkage is real for us.
Yeah, it's
so don't let these little bitty baby afros fool you. That's just shrinkage, and sometimes laziness on my part. That's my laziness.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just gonna read this comment from Miss WOC Reader. Featureism is so embedded in our community, people sometimes don't even realize they're participating. I've read a lot of romance the past year with Black women with waves and curly hair, rarely kinky. This is such a huge issue I have with a lot of street lit books. And I try to, I guess for me, where I draw the line is where I see an author and a lot of their tropes are are falling into very harmful rhetoric where the dark-skinned Black woman in the story is always the villain, always the hoe, always the ratchet one, always the stripper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The light-skinned one is always pretty with curly hair, always the, the one that all the men want, always the bad girl on the block. Like when certain authors write these tropes and they perpetuate them over and over in every story I find, that's when it becomes toxic. And that's when I have to take a step away from that writer and their work and say, okay, I can't support this, because it's so blatant, feeding into these stereotypes. And you flip it on the man side, and it's like the light skinned one man is always quote unquote soft, and this and that, and the dark skinned man is always hyper masculine and aggressive, and it's just very toxic. And unfortunately, a lot of Black romance writers fall into these tropes, and they fall into these pitfalls, and it's really sad to see. Really sad to see.
I agree. I think again, this all continues to tie into the same thing where, like we've said this a million times. I think that our generation started the generations of like really trying to address the issues within our community and calling it out for what it is. Granted, like I said, Gen Z embodies a different level of bravery that millennials don't have. But as a millennial, I can say that I've been recognizing these issues and trying to fix them within myself, because a lot of the times we've embedded these type of ideals and these types of quote unquote standards into our everyday lives because that's what we were told to do without any explanation. So now that I'm older, I'm like, why is it that I'm supposed to be okay with this? Why? And it's like now that we're starting to address these issues, now it's, well, you're just being a hater. You're just being this. And I saw a quote that was like, it always becomes uncomfortable when you're used to being the center of attention. And so that's why we see the retaliations of like, oh, you're only hating on me because of this, that, and the third, or, oh, it's just a preference. I don't understand why y'all are coming for me so hard. Oh, I'm not a hater. Like, I just like having mixed kids because they're pretty,
Right.
That kind of thing. It all still ties into the fact that the main issue that we're dealing with is the fact that this is a community issue within our own community. Yes, there were outside influences to develop these ideas in our community, but it's up to us in the community to really start eradicating them because they're ridiculous.
And this circles back to our main topic of the evening, where in a community, the men are the leaders. That's just the way it is. And it doesn't mean that women cannot lead alongside men, but it means that in a lot of ways, the men are the ones with the social capital and kind of like, in ways, the power, to make change. And I think the problem a lot of times is that in our community, a lot of these issues are perpetuated by everyone, yes, but by the men. And I'm reading some of these comments. Let me see here. It says, so true. My husband is quote unquote light and grew up in the inner city, and at times his manhood was questioned, or him and his brothers called pretty boys just because they light. And I kind of want to talk about the really, really, really harmful TikTok trend that was going on. I want to say
there's like a million.
Well, the one that I'm specifically thinking of is all of these Black boys lining up to say that they don't like Black girls. Where it had like Black girls, and then it would have like Latina girls. It would have Black girls, and then it would have white girls, or the specific colorism ones where we have like dark skin versus light skin, right? And y'all have seen these, and a lot of the Black boys would go the way of light skin, white, Latina, anything but Black. And those were like the simple ones. And then there were ones that were a little bit more detailed, where you would literally have Black boys and Black men going into detail
about all the reasons they don't like dark-skinned women or
Yes.
specifically Black women, because
Yes.
I saw one video where this man with his whole chest said, I had a girl ask me, why don't Black men like dating Black women? Which I know we don't ask them that, so I know that's a lie. But his response was, cause like every day I'm at risk of like dying out in these streets.
Oh,
And
I
he
saw
talked about
that. That was
home,
awful.
the drama and just being yelled at and treated badly and da 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 da. And I was just sitting there like, dear God, like what? Like I need there to like I don't understand why with every other group of people there's a separation between between traumatic women that they've experienced versus generalizing the entire race, because every other race, like they're talked about in a way where they can separate the trauma. And it's like you experienced one person who was abusive to you. Because some of the stuff that they be saying that all Black women do, I'm like, you were abused.
Mhm.
That's not an all Black women thing. Like that's
No.
some trauma you need to address. Like that's not all of us. Or the ones where they're like, oh, because I like my spicy Latinas. And it's like spicy. Or they call
Ooh.
what Latinas, they call them spicy. White girls, they call them
Feisty.
feisty. And then Asian women, they have that disgusting stereotype of being quote unquote meek and docile, which is a
Yes.
whole other conversation that we do not have time to get into today. And it's just like, but is there it? And then there was another one that was like, oh, he posted this picture of his ex-girlfriend where she's like in sweatpants and a bonnet. And he was like, I got to upgrade. And he scrolls over and it's this white girl who's dressed like she about to go out for a party. And it
Yikes.
was like, why did you feel like you needed to attack her? And then he was like, oh, well, she always gave me attitude and she always did this. And that's why I went to go look for this. And it's like, if your preference is rooted in the fact that you are specifically looking for somebody who is not Black, it is not preference.
I was just gonna say that because, like, I'm the type of person, like, right as we were getting ready to have this conversation, I remember having a conversation with my mom, and I really dug deep within myself as a Black woman and as a member of the Black community and, diasporically. And I was just like really thinking really, really hard because it is so normalized for us to be like, oh, I like my man dark and da 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 da. I like my man light. I like my man with curly hair, light skin, green eyes. I like my man extra chocolate. Like all of these things that have been normalized for us to say are problematic. They are. And it's that place where you have to like dig deep within yourself. Cause coming to have this conversation, I had to really think about, that idea of preference and what is so problematic about preferring a skin tone and how that is really deeply rooted in white supremacy. Excuse me. In white supremacy and deeply rooted in self-hatred, and how that is just strange. It's strange to prefer one over the other to the point where the other is completely distasteful to you, is completely just no, never. Like, it's you completely discount a human being for who they are, their soul, their likes, their interests, how compatible they may be with you, how well you will get along, all these things that really matter when it comes to having a romantic relationship with somebody. You discount all of that, you throw that all out the window, and you start at this starting point of they have to come in this skin tone. That is weird. I don't think that we've ever really unpacked that and been like, that is not normal. Like something is very wrong with this being the starting post for me seeking out somebody for a romantic partnership. That's bizarre.
I should also point out that this is something that I actually had to check within myself.
Yes.
Because how often was I always like, oh, I love my dark skinned man.
Yes.
Like I only want, like I have been a person who has spread this type of rhetoric. Well, it would be based off of stupid stuff where it's like, nah, I don't need a light skin. Like I don't need a spicy dude. Like I don't need him. And why? Why did I say that? Why would I say something like that?
And we don't even realize how deep rooted it is. And also sometimes, Brittany, this is coming from my personal experience, so I'm just going to say it. Sometimes our quote unquote preferences come from a reaction to trauma,
Oh
like you
no,
mentioned earlier.
there.
And like, I think somebody said it earlier in the chat about like how she grew up in suburbia and a lot of the Black boys in school didn't like Black girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a lot of us Black women at one point in our lives have encountered Black men that, especially if you have a deeper skin tone, have encountered Black men that just didn't like you just based off of that and weren't interested in you and based off of that. And so sometimes you overly course correct and you're like, okay, well, and a lot of times it'll be the men of your own complexion, right? 90, I don't want to say 99, but I will say 90% of the time, as if you're a darker skinned Black woman and you're hearing this rhetoric from a Black man or a Black boy, he's your same complexion, maybe darker. So it's very strange, right? It's very bizarre. So you may overly course correct and be like, well, okay, well, now I'm just gonna go for the light skinned guys or the mixed or whatever the case. And you
Yeah,
don't even recognize that you're making that reactionary decision based on
overcorrect.
something traumatic that you experienced, based off of maybe one or two people.
Yeah. It's like, well, Abominable said it, like preferences are things like muscles, locks. Like, ooh, I like a guy who dresses like this.
Or
I
like
like,
super straight teeth,
right. I love a man with broad shoulders.
nice forearms.
Specifically stating that you want a black one, white one, dark one, light one. No. Like this is
Problematic.
especially if you say, I like black girls, but only light skinned ones. No. Maybe you could say a body type.
Yes.
Because again, I just feel like I think we also, well, okay, let me rephrase. So in our effort to fix our hurt feelings, because I can speak on this specifically for me, in an effort to fix my hurt feelings of the quote unquote spicy or light skinned men. This is what we called them when we were in high school. Not being attracted to me, being attracted to my quote unquote prettier friends because I associated pretty with being light skinned.
Didn't we all?
Right. And so what I didn't realize is that I was overcorrecting and overcompensating for my feelings being hurt because I wasn't light skinned. So what did I do? I cut off all of it. I said, I'm only going to date dark skinned guys. I was literally creating another form of the same problem.
Yes.
And probably cutting off some options for myself, not realizing what I was doing, but it was an overcorrection. And it was like, oh, well, I just obviously I go for this. And to be clear, on a nerdy side, there's a scientific thing. I forgot what the name of it is, but it's a PBS documentary where it talks about like the science of attraction. Highly recommend you go watch it because the things that we claim our preference, like light skin, dark skin, whatever, those are not the things that our body biologically searches for in attraction to people.
Really?
Really?
Okay, now you got to give us the tea.
So, like for example, the basic functions of the human body are what? Survival, reproduction,
Yes.
and staying alive. That's like the primal thing.
Right.
So from a primal perspective, you know, when you were looking for a mate as a male, you were looking for someone who could bear children safely.
Correct.
You were looking for a man who could quote unquote take care of you. So when you're looking at somebody, you're not looking at them for skin color. You're looking at them for, you know, are they strong? That kind of thing. So a lot of the stuff that we claim are quote unquote preferences are social constructs.
That is amazing. And what you said, it was a documentary?
Yeah. As soon as I remember the name of it, I'm looking it up on PBS. I watch a lot of PBS when I do things. It was super
PBS.
But think about it. It's like in certain cultures, it was promoted that the wealthy
whitewash their culture.
Yeah, in certain cultures, the wealthy were lighter skin tone because they didn't have to go out and work.
This
And
is
this is something that's an example in multiple cultures where it's like you were lighter or even heavier because you weren't out there working and doing the labor. So you were considered better.
Mm.
So it's like when you look at it, it's like these type of constructs that we've created and claimed as preference aren't really anything but a way to separate each other. There's a level of elitism, there's a level of classism, there's all these different factors where we're just determined to try to be better than someone else, where we've created these quote unquote preferences, and they're not really preferences at all. It's just ways that we try to be better than someone else.
That's
But I'm about
exactly
to
it.
look up the documentary because it broke it down from like a scientific standpoint, and y'all know I loves biology.
No, I definitely want to watch that.
Yeah. Also, don't sleep on PBS. Just thought you pointed out.
I love PBS.
PBS is my junk. I love it.
I think you bring up a great point of, because people like to say, you know, well, educated people like to say that race is a social construct.
Yes.
And there are biological implications to race as well. But when you start to really do the research and look into the history, it absolutely 1000% is a social construct. And this idea of who's at the top and who's at the bottom is crucial to keep the rich, right? And to keep them, you know, ruling society, to keep them at the top, basically. And race plays hugely into that. And colorism plays into that. Um, Featureism, texturism plays into that. And we are, in a way, buying into our own demise.
Yes.
By allowing it to divide us even more than we are already divided, and perpetuating within ourselves. Like when you look at the Willie Lynch letters, which is where this all began, then you know the history, you know the concept of colorism, where it started, where it came from. And of course, we're talking about, you know, all the way back to slavery days. And so when you do the research and you're able to understand that, and you see that it is a European construct that was placed upon us, that yes, we're talking about the Black community right now and today, but they took that same ideology and they took it to all these other cultures that they conquered as well and enslaved. And that's why colorism is so widespread among so many minorities of color and communities of color. Minorities of color doesn't make sense, but communities of color. That's why it's so, like, we have that in common. But I think we were talking about in our last live how colorism also can bleed into people doing really crazy things to survive. Like we were talking about the skin bleaching in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And of course, skin bleaching goes on like worldwide. But I think there is a really great documentary on YouTube about specifically the skin bleaching in Jamaica. And I bring up specifically Jamaica because they were basically talking about in the documentary how, you know, a lot of women were doing it, yeah, okay, to get better jobs, which, you know, obviously that ties into survival and, you know, being able to be upwardly mobile when it comes to socioeconomic status. But they also talked about women being able to find husbands and how men wanted a quote unquote fair bride. And you hear that word fair a lot too in the Indian community. Okay, this is a segue, but I just had to tie this in, that there is a reality show on Netflix about Indian matchmaker, and it was very, very colorist. But yeah, it was interesting. But anyways, so they were talking about, you know, women skin bleaching simply because they wanted to get married and they wanted to be picked. They wanted to be chosen, and how men were looking for light-skinned women and the dark-skinned women were not being chosen, and how that was kind of like threatening their society. Isn't that crazy?
It's sad.
Sad, sad, sad. But yes. So anyways, I just tie that in because skin bleaching is real. It's dangerous and it's horrific. And people like to tie it only into vanity. And people don't realize that it goes so much deeper than vanity or / self-hate. It goes so much deeper than, you know, who was that? Vibes Cartel, I think, right? Who completely completely skin bleached his entire body, and now he looks like a ghost.
Oh my god.
It goes so much deeper than people trying to sell records or trying to be chosen to be in a film or, self-hate and all that, even though that's very, unfortunate and upsetting, that it can even affect someone's ability to, have a family and be upwardly mobile and have a good job. Like, that's wild.
Man. Also, like, I'm really worried about the health implications that skin bleaching will present
Absolutely.
because essentially you're bleaching the melanin away, which is protectant.
Yes.
So it's like I'm really worried about what I'm really worried about what type of long lasting effects that this is going to have on the community. Um, because it's like it's promoting this idea that like it's wonderful, it's the solution, but like what is it actually doing to your skin? Like what
Right.
is it doing to the outer epidermis of your skin?
That's so
And
intense.
I wish that that was something that was also talked about because it's just like, man, like I just also I want to bring this comment up. Skin bleaching is super popular in Somalia too. A lot of my family bleached their skin, but it's also not something that's openly flaunted. It's easier to have people think you were born with lighter skin. And then it used to be women that bought into the bleaching trend, but men are doing it too.
Oh, they're absolutely doing it too. It's so sad. I remember this incident in particular where growing up, I went to a like very diverse church. It was a non-denominational church where our pastor was Ghanaian and his wife was Mexican. So that just goes to show the diversity of the church. And there was this woman who she was a family friend, and she's also Nigerian. And she had two little boys in quick succession. And one day I saw her putting something on her little boy's face. He couldn't have been more than 4 months. Um, and I'm thinking, okay, she's just moisturizing him. Y'all, it was skin bleaching cream.
Huh?
She was rubbing skin bleaching cream all over his face,
On a
all over
4 month old?
all over his hands, all over. I have never forgotten that moment. And I was a child. So like there's so many things now looking back, so many incidents that occurred when I was a kid where I can now look back and recognize colorism. But because I didn't grow up in a colorist household and my parents did not perpetuate those ideas, colorism was not I did not have the language for it. I did not have the understanding for it uh, when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I became an adult and even well into my adulthood that I was able to educate myself and really try to see it for what it was. So back then, I just remember being young and being just horrified because even at that point, I understood the skin bleaching was wrong, right? Because I remember in my house, we had those little skin bleaching things for like your elbows and your knees.
Oh yeah, and for like the discoloration on your
Yes,
face.
yes, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I remember
But
those.
never would I just take it and rub it all over my body, right? That just was not a concept in my household. So to see her take that and rub it all over her baby, her beautiful 4-month-old, I was shocked. And I just remember telling my mom, and my mom was in disbelief. She was like, no, that can't be the case. No. And then she confronted her and realized that I was right. And we were both just like, oh my God.
Okay. Uh, this is another, oh, wow. Okay, Hannah, me and you are on the same page. I was about to say this is another generational curse that I would love for it to stop with us. And so here's the question I'm going to pose to everyone on the comments and you. What is something now that we recognize that it's things that even we have perpetuated? And now that this is something that we've all recognized that we have done one time in our lives, have done something that perpetuates this problem. What are you doing to ensure that you are not continuing this problem? Like, what is something that you are very cognizantly doing to make sure that you're not a part of this problem?
That's a great question.
because
Because
it
it starts with the individual. It starts with you start with yourself, and then you can take it from there. Just like, Brittany and I talking about checking ourselves and our quote unquote preferences, and are the ways that we perpetuated colorism even in our dating choices, and taking a step back from that and checking yourself and being like, wow, that is not good, and making that change.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, I just wanna point this out because Salter brought this up. You do not need bleaching cream to even out your skin tone. If you can't afford it, look into investing in an esthetician or a dermatologist. And if you cannot afford it, look at the products that you are using to wash your face, because the cells on your face are just like the cells everywhere else, and you're constantly rejuvenating. So, because you're constantly rejuvenating, that scar on your face will go away eventually. And that's why exfoliating is important. But again, we'll have a skincare conversation later. Um, but here's an example of something that I'm cognizant, always trying to be aware of when I speak. One, I'm always trying to be aware of the fact that as a community, we are all hurting in some sort of way. So when I'm addressing anything in this particular conversation, I'm aware that there are people who have not reached the point that I've reached. So because they have not reached the point that I've reached, I'm always going to be careful when I'm addressing it, but I'm not going to stray away from addressing it. I personally am no longer making comments about dark skin, light skin. Now, to be clear, amongst my friends, we do say stupid stuff to each other, but I'm a Black girl with Black friends, and dragging each other is how we say we love you.
It's just
So,
a part of the vibe.
right. But I'm no longer being like, oh, I only like dark skinned men. Now, if I see a dark skinned man walking across the street, I will be like, that's some fine dark chocolate.
That's hilarious.
Again, I'm making sure that I'm not helping perpetuate these ideas. Um, I really want to call it out. I don't want my friends using this type of language. Um, if I see somebody talking about hair and they use nappy in a derogatory term, because I call my hair nappy all the time, but I love my hair. And I take nappy as a sense of pride, whereas when we're using it in this negative texturism vocabulary, it's negative.
Right.
So it's like when I'm speaking about color, when I'm talking about hair, I am always trying to speak from it from a place of love and from a place of upliftment. And if I catch myself having a moment, I do check myself, and I'm
Right.
trying to make it known to my friends as well, like, hey, that's not a preference.
I also want to say, I just want to come back to this. Oh, hold on. You're not done with your list, are you? Continue.
No, that's my basic list. I'm not making like a 10-step thing. I'm just doing things that should be a part of my everyday nature.
Okay. I wanted to come back to this idea of support, right? And when we see something in our community that we know is harmful, that we know is toxic, when we see something that we're trying to change, then we have to disconnect from those who are either willfully or knowingly ignorant, and are continue to perpetuate these really harmful stereotypes and these harmful ideologies. And I just want to say that when it comes to accountability, when it comes to what are you doing in your life after you check yourself, I think it's very important to not support people um, who perpetuate colorist statements. Who, I don't know about you, but I don't buy music from rappers who say colorist things in their songs. I don't listen to their music. I don't support actors who have said colorist harmful things, who have said things about dark-skinned people in harmful ways. I don't go see their films. I don't buy their music. I don't stream. I don't go to their concerts. I wouldn't buy anything from them. I wouldn't buy a t-shirt. Nope. And that's just my personal convictions. And that's where I draw the line, because I refuse to support with my money and my presence and my, whatever, my platform. I refuse to support, whether they be whatever they are, whatever type of public figure, writers, actors, I don't care. I don't do it. And I don't listen to that music because you don't realize how it's affecting you, but it does psychologically affect you, and it normalizes that type of speech where red bone this, yellow bone that, I want me this, I want me that. And it just, when you listen to it over and over and over, you consume it, it normalizes it. It's playing in your car. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've literally cringed in my soul when I'm watching, you know, maybe a YouTube video of a lifestyle vlogger or TikTok, and I see them in the car and I see the complexion of their children, and then I hear the music that they're playing, and I'm just like, ooh, ooh. And that kid is taking it in, soaking it in. It, it really kills my soul. And I just want to be like, oh my God, why? Why are you listening to that? You have a beautiful dark skinned baby girl in the back, and you're listening to this rapper talking about, I don't want no dark B, like, da 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 da. Like, oh my God. It just, it's things like that that really kills me, because it's almost like this weird disconnect and it's cognitive dissonance, because we are so used to hearing these type of things that it's become embedded in our culture, in our subconscious, that we don't even recognize when it's being said and how wrong it is. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let me read some comments. Oh, man, listen, hold on. Let me put this comment on the screen. The boomer generation is so bad when it comes to this. I work with children, and this one woman was always telling little girls with the natural hair, why didn't your mother comb your hair? Listen.
So
Okay.
sad.
So my grandmother, ever since I've gone natural, we all know I will throw my hair up into a poof real quick. Especially on a bad twist out day. That's just the go-to style, right? So one time I went to go, I'm just using this as an example. I still very much love my grandmother. But she was so insistent on me, quote unquote, going to the Dominicans so they could do something to my hair. They can press it. They can get it real straight.
Yep.
Like, you sure you don't want to do nothing? It's just all over the place. And in one hand, as my mom reminded me, like, my grandmother was a child during the time where they were taught to assimilate.
Yeah, they couldn't get jobs.
Or die, essentially.
They could not get jobs.
So it's our job. Like, that doesn't mean I'm like, oh, grandma, you're just joking. I still tell my grandma, that's messed up. My hair, there's nothing wrong with my hair. Stop saying that. That's not right. Like, I will still check my grandma. So
absolutely.
Is it annoying? Absolutely. Because one thing about old people is they will double down, stand there with their whole chest.
They will.
And then, especially with Black elders, respect your elders is one of the first things they love to spew out.
I know. And you know what? It's interesting because, like, from looking at it from their side, like you said, like, they grew up in a time where it was assimilate or die.
Mm-hmm.
And so we understand the trauma that they've lived through and how that's just been embedded into their psyche. But on the other hand, if we continue to correct them, because I had the same issue with my mom, actually. Like, when I first went natural, my mom was kind of like, I don't know about this. But now my mom has locks. And it's like, you have to start the journey. Like, you start to decolonize your mind, and you start to pass the knowledge down, you know, even though they're your elder, your parent, your grandparent, auntie, whatever, you pass the knowledge down. You say, no, like, and I would have conversations with my mom all the time. I would be like, well, because she'd be like, you sure you don't want to comb your hair? You sure don't want to do this? You don't want to do that? And I'd be like, well, you have been conditioned to thinking that my hair in its natural state is unkempt and is not professional, or is not this and not that. And you have to understand that this is the way that my hair literally grows out of my head.
Right.
And we have been colonized, and we have been conditioned to thinking the way we are naturally, there's something wrong with us. And I'm taking a stand and I'm saying no more. And now she has locks.
Honestly, it's like a never ending struggle, but I think it's something that we as a community need to do. And also, if you've got friends that spew this type of hateful things and hide it behind the phrase of, oh, it's just a preference, like, start having those hard conversations with your friends, because it's this. Salter has a good point. there are HBCUs still discriminating against natural hair. So it's going to take longer to decouple respectability politics from interpersonal preferences. And this is also a thing because I remember, so for those who don't know, I'm an engineer and I joined NSBE, which is the National Society of Black Engineers. And they had yearly conferences. They would come to the school and they would talk to you about job opportunities. And, most of the time it was usually alumni. And I remember going up to an alumni and I was excited because she was working for a business, a company that I really wanted to work for at the time. So I go to her and I'm talking to her and I'm trying to figure out the best way to, finesse this interview so I can get this internship, right? Because I'm thinking, we can, because we went to the same school, we both Black
Right.
girls, we both engineers, like this should be a great thing. The advice that she gave me first?
Uh-oh.
Do something to my hair. They're
Stop.
not gonna take me seriously with my hair looking all natural like that. Maybe I should put a wig on before tomorrow.
No.
But that's because, think about it, we were taught, like, for goodness sake, my name is what my name is because my mom didn't want me to be judged by having quote unquote ghetto name.
Right.
Remember? So like it's a lot of things that we're gonna be dismantling for a long time because it's been embedded. It's been deeply embedded and
So
we
deep.
don't even realize how detrimental it is because it's the norm.
There are a lot of things that happen in childhood that you realize as an adult are not norms, but rather really harmful ideologies that have been passed down from the older generation. Like I remember, not in my family, but when I would go visit other people, them telling us not to go outside, like us darker
Yes.
skin girls, not to
Keep
play
playing outside
outside.
in the sun.
And how even in family gatherings or gatherings where, like church picnics and things of that nature, youth group, the lighter skinned girls were always preferred and always had preferential treatment. They were always seen as, to be protected, and they were always seen as like more soft and more feminine. If the light-skinned girl started crying, then it was like, oh, is everything okay? And if a dark-skinned girl started crying, it was like, it's going to be all right. Like, suck it up. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're tough. And you look back on so many childhood, as a dark-skinned Black woman, you look back on so many childhood incidents and you're just like, that was colorism. That was problematic. That was featureism. That was texturism. And it was often the elders in our community that were perpetuating these harmful things. And that's how it gets embedded. Because if
Yeah.
you're a little girl being told all your friends are outside playing and you're being told that you can't play outside, you start to look at yourself and you start to look at them and you're like, well, why can't I go outside? But they can. And you see that they're light skinned and you're not. Like there's just so many things that, and as a child, it's very harmful, right? It's so harmful because it teaches you from a young age that something is wrong with you because of your skin, that you're not as good as, that you're not deserving of sympathy. You're not, you can't play outside with the others. You're not this, you're not that. And it becomes this like mountain that just builds on top of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize it when you're older, which is why so many of us need therapy, y'all. So many to unpack these things, right? And then before you know it, you have kids of your own and you're perpetuating it onto your kids because it's normalized for you. And until you unpack that and you heal and you step away from that, from what was done to you in order to really honestly decolonize yourself, you will perpetuate it onto the next generation without even realizing. You will then be telling your child, your dark-skinned child, not to play outside. You will then be telling them, all of these things. Like I remember a good friend of mine would tell me that her sister was much lighter than her, and her whole life she saw the preferential treatment between her and her sister, and how her sister would always be called the pretty one and she would always be called the smart one.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And right. And just little things that would happen where her sister got asked to a dance and it was like, of course you got asked. You're so beautiful. Da, 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 da. she got asked to a dance, and it was like surprise, like, oh wow, who's you got asked? Oh, that's great, like
Oh,
little things like that. And I was like, oh, oh my God, just like how that affects you as a person growing up and then coming into adulthood. If you don't think that that has affected you and has traumatized you, you got to sit with that and unpack that because it has.
yeah, this comment, I just had this conversation with my cousins and we realized we had a lot of traumas to unpack and generational curses to break. One of them being the loads of colorism in our family. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
Families.
this is another thing I've kind of learned because this is um I stopped blaming my parents
Mm,
because at one point I kind of was looking for like, "It's your fault," and it's like, no, that's been carried. That's
right.
through generations. Along with our good, we've carried bad,
Yes.
and I'm stopping it here. I mean, I'm not having kids, no way, but my nieces and nephews, it will be stopped, and it's just like, dang, like how many times I used to get in trouble for being on my knees because my mom didn't want to get them too dark.
Yes.
Simple things like that where you're thinking it's like I was too young to understand that kind of stuff, but like,
Mhm.
it was really didn't want to get too dark. Don't get too dark. Don't be out in the sun too long. Try to stay under the umbrella, that kind of thing.
I
And
just
you're like,
remember. Oh,
dang.
absolutely. I remember how surprised, like, I remember when I lived in New York, this was shortly after college, I was friends with these 2 girls, and they were both Afro, um, Afro Hispanics,
Mhm.
and they were both lighter skinned. I remember that. And I remember we went on vacation, and one of the girls in particular was fair, very fair. And we went to Vegas and we were outside, and I was just like unapologetically outside by the pool, not under the umbrella, not reapplying sunblock every 5 minutes, just unapologetically laying out. And she was just like shocked. Just goes to show how embedded it is in all pockets of the African diaspora. She was like, because to her, she was like, oh, I'm gonna get a tan because she's light skinned, right? So it's like, oh, a tan on you is like beautiful and desired and like what you want. And I'm not trying to get a tan, but I'm out here because I like the sun and I enjoy being out here and I'm not gonna be scared to go under an umbrella. I just remember how shocked she was, how surprised she was. And she was like, "Really? Are you sure?" Just things like that. Things like that just go to show how deeply embedded it is.
Oh man. I
Yeah,
mean,
I remember that incident because even then, back then, I'm not even gonna lie, I was ignorant to the whole colorism thing because, like
mhm.
I said, I didn't grow up with it really. So I didn't grow up with it in my family. It happened to me outside, like at school and stuff like that, but I didn't understand it. So I just remember being like so confused as to why she was so shocked. I was like, yeah, the sun. I want to be out here. What's wrong with you? I was like, we're in Vegas. Like, it's great. Having a great time.
Yeah, I will say that I didn't really start loving my skin until well, okay. I didn't really see the beauty in my skin until the day that I admitted to my parents that I wish I was light skinned like my brother.
Mm,
And that was like the first like instance where like my parents were like, "What?" Mind you, my daddy is dark, 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 dark chocolate,
right.
like dark chocolate, and my mom isn't. So, and then of course, when you have children, you just become like an assorted chocolate box of
It is.
flavors. And I was like, and I told my parents, like, I really wish I was one of, I said something along the lines of like, I wish that I had been lucky enough to have lighter skin because then people would think that I was pretty. Because
Wow.
at the time, I think I was a freshman in high school. Um, there were guys that I was attracted to, that were only befriending me to talk to my friend, and I had associated it with because she's light skinned.
Mm.
I'm older now. She was a hoe.
Oh my
Nothing
God,
against her, but
no,
like,
no.
but like, but you know, when
She
I
was
was
out there.
younger, I automatically assumed she was prettier than me. She was better than me, and they clearly wanted her because she was light skinned, and I had nothing I could offer them because I wasn't light skinned. Do not ask me why I put those two together when I was younger. I don't really remember when I started think or what caused me to start thinking like that, but I do remember, and I remember and I remember my dad just straight up being like, "Your friend."
How do I break this to you?
Yeah, like my dad was like, "It's not because she's light skinned."
Right.
My dad was like, "Your skin is beautiful. Like, that is not the reason." He was like, "You don't need a man to tell you that your skin is beautiful." And then after that point, my dad just made it like my dad was like overly over the top, like emphasizing my skin. But like now that I'm older, my dad was like, "No, I really wanted to say because your friend, everybody knew what your friend was doing." And I was like,
Right.
"Oh."
Except for you. Oh my goodness. And you know what? That's why like representation is so important because when you grow up seeing nothing in the media that represents beauty that looks like you, it just adds to everything that's going on. So it's like you already live in a community that's colorist. Maybe you have colorist family members. Maybe you're being compared to lighter skinned family members. Maybe you're experiencing colorism at school, right? It's like this trickle down effect where there are really no safe spaces in your life. Um, or perhaps, everyone has different experiences, but I'm just talking about the general colorism experience of a dark skinned person, where you may not have a lot of safe spaces. And then you turn to media, and that's not a safe space either, because everything that is being called beautiful and desirable and feminine and this and that and everything, speaking specifically to women. For boys, I know it's like their colorism is actually very harmful and bleeds into a lot of like stats when it comes to um, criminal, how skin tones are criminalized in the prison industrial complex, and we can go into all of that. But I'm speaking, specifically about women because that's my experience and that's what I can speak to. But when the media representation is you're not seen in the way that is good and desirable, and you're only seen in ways that are perhaps distasteful to you, that are negative, then that only compounds and adds to the problem. And that is why representation is so important. And in one hand, I'm so glad that we live in a time now where we have so much more media to choose from.
Mhm.
We don't just have mainstream media, but people now have their own platforms where dark-skinned women um, are being supported, are being seen, have good promotion, and have promotion that is diversified, and have promotion that is not just one thing or not just pigeonholed to be something negative. So I'm glad that we live in a better time now where we have those options, and little girls can see themselves as something more than just the negative stereotypes that have been perpetuated for eons now. So I'm really glad about the promotion and how that is slowly changing. Even when it comes to something simple like a young adult book and who's on the cover, and the skin tone of the blackness being represented on the cover of the book, something even like that, where we didn't have those books, Brittany. We didn't have those books.
And every time I think about like dark skin representation in cartoons, I think about the Proud Family.
Mm,
And I remember how they did the best friend,
yes,
DJ,
Dijonay, and also those girls that they made
and the
blue.
Blue Sisters.
Can we talk about that?
No, because we'll be here for like 8 hours.
Oh, honey, like it's
It's like,
so prevalent in our society that it's like I said, it's so normalized that when we're children, we don't have the language for it and we don't really fully understand what's happening, but it becomes embedded in our psyche. And then as adults, we have to unpack all of these things, and we really have to do the work to heal from all these traumas. But yeah, that was insane. Like it's so funny now because now when I watch The Proud Family or when I watch clips of it, I'm just like shaking my head like, oh my God.
oh, I tried to go back and rewatch it. That'll have to be another. We can have another like childhood podcast conversation of just about the Proud Family
You
because
know what's really hard for me to rewatch, actually?
what is
Martin. Because
Martin?
the way they do Pam,
Martin
or is
didn't
it
age
Pam
very
or
well
what's her
at
face?
all.
It's so hard, and it makes me so sad because I loved that show growing up, and it was so funny to me, and I cannot watch it now. I can't.
You
It's
know,
really, really hard for me to watch it. Same thing with like when I rewatched Coming to America, one of my favorite movies, by the way. The way they did the little sister was tough to watch. I was like, ooh, yikes. Because again, that stereotype of like the light skinned sister with the curly hair is the beautiful one, the one that
it's always dark skinned boys, and the oldest dark skinned boy is always the one always getting in trouble. Then they always have like a middle light skinned sister, and the light skinned sister is always super popular and
beautiful.
ditzy and dumb.
Yes,
And then there's always like a spunky younger sibling. And
right.
if it's a girl, she can be dark skinned because she'll be spunky with attitude, blackish,
Or evil.
or she'll be like emo or something. Like, ugh.
And you know what's interesting? I really hope we start to have these conversations and we start to kind of stop this from happening once again with our support and us just speaking out about it more. But why are Black boys allowed to be Black, fully Black, in their different varieties, dark skin, light skin, this, that. But Black girls on TV are only ever allowed to be biracial, but playing full Black girls or super light skinned. And if they are dark skinned, they're relegated to, like you said, evil, depressed, super outspoken and aggressive, and like all of these negative stereotypes that in and of itself are not even really negative, right? Because when you look at white characters, they're allowed to be a gamut of things.
Right.
And for that to be seen as positive, right? They're not aggressive. They're feisty and outspoken. They're not evil. They're very diabolical. They're like a genius. They're not, it's like they take everything negative and flip it for them. And they're allowed to have this variety of promotion and variety of different characters with different nuances, but we're not, right? We're not allowed. Unless, you're the light-skinned daughter with the curly hair, then maybe you're allowed to have a little bit more. But they do them wrong too, because they pigeonhole them as well. They pigeonhole the light-skinned daughter as well. So it's so irritating. Like every time I watch one of these new shows, I'm just like, here we go again. Like, was this written by Kenya Barris? Like, what's going on in Hollywood?
I'm sorry, I wasn't ready.
Like, Kenya, did you write this too, bro? Like, I'm just like, because I'm tired.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
Yeah, you start to see it everywhere. Like once your eyes have been open to it, you revisit all your childhood shows differently. Like even like one of my favorite shows, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you revisit it differently. I want to say like the Cosby Show somewhat escaped that, but then when you really watch the differences between Denise and Vanessa, ooh,
yeah.
Like, and even Sandra, right? Like Sandra, Denise, Vanessa. Okay, like. You think like you'll be like, oh well, what about this show? And then you rewatch it and you're like, ooh, yeah, that was problematic.
Bro, we leave no books behind. Just bought up this like
yes, Gullah Gullah Island, even Gullah Gullah Island, something that was so wholesome.
Like, even from like My Brother and Me.
Yep.
I think the only show that didn't do that was Cousin Skeeter.
Yeah, because it wasn't that what's her face? The beautiful
that was Megan Good.
Megan Good. Yeah. Cousin
I know every guy loved her. Like them braces came off and they about lost their mind. But I'm trying to think. I'm like
I mean, Megan Good has gotten lighter over the years, but that's a conversation for another day.
Other conversation.
Like, ooh. Yeah. So has Kerry Washington. Go back and rewatch Save the Last Dance.
Oh my gosh.
And then try to watch what is the most recent show? Scandal, and see the difference in skin tone.
I mean, even throughout the seasons of Scandal, she's yeah.
You're like, what's going on? What's going on, Carrie?
Oh man.
Yes. Yes, colorism. Like where even actors recognize that they have to be the skin tone of acceptance to get roles. But that's like our part 3 conversation where we talk about colorism in media.
Yeah, I mean, colorism in media is people on Twitter saying that they should replace Letitia Wright in Black Panther
Oh no.
with Amandla or Zendaya because
I
they only know 3 biracial Black people
But here's the problem.
to replace them.
The biracial representation is also not there because if they're always casting them to be in a full Black family, where's their representation? If I was biracial, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, this is not my representation. Like, what's going on?
I mean, normally I can't really think of too many stories where there's a story about actual mixed kids.
That's why I would be angry. They need their representation as well. Like, you can't just write one story and try to slot and fit puzzle pieces that don't make sense. Like, that's kind of reminds me of when what was I watching recently that was really crazy to me? I think I was watching the Babysitters Club remakes that they're doing on Netflix, and they cast a biracial guy as Marianne, who was a white character, and I was so lost. Like, I remember watching, like, and they killed off the mom, so I was like, oh, maybe the mom is Black, and they zoomed in on the picture of the mom. No, she was white. I was confused. It's
Wait,
all
what
just wrong.
show?
The Babysitters Club.
Oh, the one on Netflix?
Yes, and they
Yes.
used a
the
biracial
Marianne
actress to
character?
play Marianne, and she's clearly biracial. Like,
Clearly biracial.
I was so confused. I was like, is she adopted? Is that a new storyline they're doing? No.
It's
They just made a casting choice, didn't make sense. And it wasn't even like blind casting all the way around, a la like Brandy Cinderella, the best Cinderella ever to be made, right?
only
Like, it wasn't
Cinderella we recognize.
only one. It wasn't like blind casting like that, right? No, it was just random.
I think I use that as an example all the time. I was like, you want to talk about some real, we don't care about race? Cinderella.
That was good. But yeah, so we could talk about this for hours, but I do want to circle back to the beginning where we talked about preference versus prejudice versus colorism. And I think we can agree that a lot of times preferences are rooted in colorism. And when we talk about prejudice, it is prejudice to prefer someone based off of the color of their skin. Like, that's in the Black community, right? It is disturbing that is your number one criteria, where you will completely disregard a whole pool of candidates simply because of their skin complexion. And if you want to sit there and tell me that I'm wrong and that is not problematic and deeply rooted in some type of self-hate, then you're just being willfully ignorant and you're just not willing to take a deeper look at yourself. That's all I got to say.
I think
because people would say, well, you like what you like, you're attracted to what you're attracted to, and I'm like, but you never wanted to dig deeper to find out why that's the case?
I think that's a simplified explanation of it. Because, I mean, I can only keep using myself. Like, when I would say that I only wanted to date dark-skinned Black men, that was my preference. I only wanted to date dark-skinned Black women. Like, I didn't find light-skinned men attractive, which was, what? It's like, yeah, figure out why you like that. But at the same time, if you don't see it as a problem, you wouldn't think anything past it.
That's true.
Because, like, we're not taught to see that as a problem. We've never been taught to see those kind of statements as a problem.
That's very true.
So we are now finally calling that out as a real problem. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because
they don't.
It implies that their way of thinking has been wrong. And it's wrong. It's definitely wrong. Because like I said, I had to correct myself and understand the only reason why I was saying foolishness like that, because it was like, no. It was because my therapist was like, do you not find light-skinned men attractive? I was like, no, I find them all very beautiful to look at. And she was like, so why do you feel like Black men are the only ones you'll date though? like, huh. And I was like, well, they're usually the only ones that talk to me. So she was like, so because they're the only ones that talk to you right now, you think that you're only supposed to date dark skinned men. I was like, okay, you're being loud right now.
Making too much sense.
Right. I was like, no one asked for logic.
Right. No, it's true. It's one of those things where you have to unpack it for yourself and kind of try to get to the bottom of it. I will say though that there are a lot of people that just are not either not comfortable with that or they just don't want to. They are comfortable having their preferences and having their idea for why they have that as being justifiable. And to those people, I say, at the end of the day, I don't really care. It's your life. I'm dead serious. It's your life, and you can do whatever you want to do and date and marry and be with whomever you want, no matter what the reason. I just think that if we're trying to move forward as a group, these are the type of things that you have to talk about.
And you know, and just because I have to clown, it don't really matter what color they are. If they ain't shit, they ain't shit.
Yep. This
So
is
how
fact.
about we start looking at things other than their skin tone? Now, don't get me wrong. If I see you and I'm attracted to you, that's what it is because you see first.
Yes.
Unless you're on social media, I guess, but I don't do social media or online dating. So I'm obviously going to be attracted with my eyes first. And hopefully the words that come out of your mouth will keep the attraction alive.
Yes.
So
I think
that's
that
how I'm viewing attraction now.
I think that's perfect. I think that you're absolutely right. Like what you see and what you're drawn to is what you see and what you're drawn to. And obviously from there you can look deeper into their personality, characteristics, you know, etc. There's just something in my soul that finds it distasteful to disqualify somebody out the gate because of their skin color. Like that is weird. And I will die on that hill. And you know, it's another thing where like I've had to check myself when it comes to like height as well. And to automatically disqualify somebody.
I'm still being worked on in this particular category.
Look, girl, it's hard. Like I'm like, ooh. And
Really
honestly,
hard.
it's like, oh, they're 5'5" or 5'6". And it's like, okay.
See, this is the whole. This is the one part where I'm like, I am not delivered because I'm also 5'9". I'm 5'8", 5'9". You know, it just listen.
I'm not gonna act like I've crossed the river to the other side, but I'm
I
just
have
saying
not.
it's something that
I am
I'm
on the
thinking
other side of the
about.
river in this category.
It's in the forefront of my mind, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta work on that a little bit. Gotta work on that. And you know, like you said, you're attracted to what you're attracted to, but I don't want it to be like I start talking to somebody, we're vibing, we're having a great time, everything's awesome, and then we get up from the bar and he's shorter than I like, and I'm automatically like, whoop, deuces. I don't want to be that girl anymore. I don't want to be that girl anymore.
Listen,
I want to be
this
able to be
comment
like,
right
okay,
here,
it
just
wasn't.
like the dude in the movie tapping a black woman and walking through a sea of melanin to have them introduce you to the one white lady.
Oh my God, no way. That happened? What?
That's funny.
Wow.
No, like
That's awkward.
I think we should just remember that see, Miss WLC Reader, this is me. It's thing I'm working on.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie.
I think the general idea of this is have preferences. That's perfectly fine, but make sure they're actually preferences and not
prejudices.
Yeah, make sure they're not like there's a difference between prejudice, preference, and there's a difference between discrimination and preference. There's a difference. If your preference and your reasoning for that preference is deep rooted in isolating a group based on the color of their skin, it's not a preference.
It's not a
prejudice. So it's just, you know, we just got to be mindful. Dating sucks, period. So it don't really matter. But
I agree. Like it'd be one thing to say, like, for example, when it comes to interracial dating and how some people are for it and some people are not. I think it's one thing to say, you know what, I prefer to be with someone of my own race. That's just what my preference is. However, if I were to meet somebody that was not of my race and we were just like a perfect match and we just hit it off, I'm not going to turn them down just because. To me, that's reasonable.
yeah, it's like Like I have actually said like I prefer dating Black men because we share similar experiences that other races are not able to relate to. I've said that, and that's still problematic in a sense because I'm still working on that. But like I'm recognizing that some of the things that I said were like preferences are problematic in their own ways. So I've been slowly unpacking each one of them like one at a time. Also, I'm 4'8", so everyone is tall to me, but thank God I'm married because damn, it's not it.
It's
Fact.
not. Not it at all. But Brittany, honestly, I don't think that it's wrong to prefer someone of your race. I think most people prefer someone of their race, um, just statistically speaking. But I don't think that that's a wrong preference to have, to be honest with you. I think that it's when you start to completely just say, oh, I'm completely disqualifying people who are not of my race at all because of they're not of my race. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's always been that thing where like I side eye people who are like, I don't like who are Black. I'm like, oh, I don't date Black people. I've always been like, but why?
Yeah,
So
that's when it gets weird. Like that's when it starts to become a slippery slope, right? Because most people prefer to date someone of their race for many, many reasons. Um, culture experiences that are similar, wanting to build a family unit in their community. Like we can go on and on and on and on. These are things that go down to back to biology, back to literally like the inception of people being different and being in cultural groups. That
exactly.
is not odd. What is odd is when your distaste for giving someone a chance outside of your race starts to sound like prejudice slash racism because of it starts to sound like you are dehumanizing those not of you. That's when it gets weird. Like
That's
it's
the
a
word I was
fine
looking
line and it's a
for.
slippery slope. Yeah.
Like if your preferences start to dehumanize somebody else for the sake of your preference, it's not a preference anymore.
Right.
So it's just
Exactly.
understand why you like what you like.
Yes.
Because there's nothing wrong with liking what you like. But
Not at all.
understand that if what you like is like, I mean, for example, again, I met a guy who literally told me that he thought I was beautiful, but too bad I'm Black. And he was a Black man.
Oh wow.
And I just kind of looked at him, thanked him for the conversation, and walked away. Cause it was like, boy, I wouldn't date you no way. Cause
No.
we're not. Nope. Here is a list of therapists that I've heard are fantastic. Look into one of those.
Right.
That's the only date you should be scheduling.
Whew.
It's just we got to do better. We're
I
hurting
agree.
ourselves. We're hurting ourselves. We're just hurting. We're hurting ourselves.
Amen.
It's like, dang, bro, we got enough happening to us from the outside. We do not need to be doing this on the inside.
100% agree.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that comes to the end of our conversation. It's been almost 2 hours, and I think this has been very productive.
It's been fun. Like, I think we had some good conversation in the chat too. Thank you for
Yes.
everybody who came to participate.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us and for your comments and for just sharing your experiences. We really appreciate it. We will be having a part 3 as always. This colorism conversation is ever evolving and has many moving parts. So we definitely are interested in talking about colorism in media, although we touched a little bit on it today and other facets. So thank you so much for coming. And don't forget to like this video. It really does help our analytics if you give this video a like. And we will try to find the part 1 and see if we can't link that as well.
If you're not subscribed, we ask that you subscribe because we still are on the goal of getting this channel monetized, and we want to have a community page. We need more followers.
Yes, please. That would be great.
Our next conversation will actually be October. What is it? October 20th?
Mm-hmm.
So on October 20th, which is this Wednesday, if you would like to come join us for another chat, this one is a book conversation. We'll finally be talking about Hollywood Homicide by Kelly Garrett,
Yes.
which we have lots of things to say. Also, if you guys are unaware, the book that we are currently reading as a group is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson.
Right.
That is currently the pick right now as a nonfiction. So that is the book that we are currently reading. If you guys want to, join us for that. And then also our Halloween podcast is scheduled for October 26th, and it is happily titled The Black Horror Show.
We are very excited about
So we're
that.
very excited about that one.
Yes. So we will see y'all on Wednesday for our podcast, finally discussing Hollywood Homicide. And then we will see y'all next Monday for the horror show. That sounds weird to say it like that. And we will catch y'all online.
All right. Stay black. Stay
Stay
amazing.
black.
Bye.
Bye.